So I want to welcome everyone this evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you may be. This is a webinar to help incoming fall 2024 students better understand financial aid, the processes behind it, and just some other additional resources as it relates to finances and kind of supporting your time here in the MSW program. For those that have not met me, whether it be via phone or virtually, my name is Cerise Carrington, and I am the Assistant Director of Financial Aid here in the MSW program. And I am also joined here by Marissa Tucker. She will be, at least initially, presenting to you all with the first half of the webinar, and then I'll kind of step in towards the end. I do just want to provide a couple of housekeeping points. This webinar is being recorded. Within a few days, it should be added to the Admitted Student Toolkit. So if for any reason you might have to leave the webinar early, you will have access to the information as well as the slide presentation that we have this evening as well. You are more than welcome throughout the course of the webinar to ask questions, keeping in mind that some of your questions may be more, I guess, kind of personalized in the sense that it might be best for you to reach out to us directly, whether it be after the webinar this evening. You're more than welcome to send us an email. Marissa and I would be happy to schedule some time to meet with you if that's what it takes to kind of get you over this hump here with financial aid. But at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Marissa.
All right, well, thank you. As Cerise mentioned, my name is Marissa. I'm a financial aid officer here in the School of Social Work. I'm happy to be meeting with everyone tonight. Some of today's objectives will be to understand grants and scholarships versus federal funding, such as loans and work study, the responsibilities of the School of Social Work versus the university's Office of Financial Aid, understanding tuition and fee rates, understanding the cost of attendance, understanding your student bill and how financial aid is processed, and identifying additional sources of financial aid. When it comes to financial aid, our students are eligible to apply for both scholarships and grants as well as federal financial aid. As far as the scholarships and grants are concerned, many have been awarded scholarships and grants through the School of Social Work, such as the Michigan Scholarship, the Opportunity Grant, the Dean's Mission Scholarship, the MSW Tuition Award, possibly various other development or donor fund awards, many of which are awarded at the time of admission. And some of you may have been awarded special program awards. A couple notes regarding these scholarships. Both the Michigan Scholarship and Opportunity Grants are need-based grants and scholarships that do require that free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA. Scholarships like the Dean Mission Scholarship has both a merit and need-based component. The MSW Tuition Award is for part-time students, and it helps offset the cost of tuition, as our part-time students do end up having to pay more per credit hour. For the Development and Donor Fund Awards, those applications will become available in the fall semester, so sometime soon we'll be sending an email out. I know Cerise will talk a little bit more about that later on. When it comes to federal funding, our graduate students are eligible for a direct unsubsidized loan, a direct Graduate Plus loan, and then work study. However, students must complete that FAFSA form to be eligible for these. Please do make sure you're filling out the correct FAFSA form. So the 2024-2025 FAFSA applies to the fall 2024 semester, winter 2025, and then spring-summer 2025. The 2025-2026 FAFSA, which should open October 1st of this year, will apply to the fall 2025, winter 2026, and spring-summer 2026 semesters, and students may need to complete that FAFSA for future semesters. I do just want to emphasize the fact that most of our students are using a combination of grants, scholarships, and loans to cover their cost of attendance. The School of Social Work is not able to award full tuition or full cost of attendance. So students are aware, MSW students will work with two different offices regarding their time in their program during MSW students will work with two offices during their time in the program regarding their financial aid. So the School of Social Work is responsible for awarding scholarships and grants. Many are notified at the time of admission of their award for each semester of enrollment. So for this reason, students do not need to reapply for grants and scholarships each semester or academic year. We do try to simplify things for students so they know what their grant and scholarship package looks like, so that way they can evaluate their need for federal funding. The university's Office of Financial Aid handles all of the federal awarding, which includes federal loans and work study. Students will be notified of awards each academic year, which includes fall and winter semesters. Students will also be notified of spring summer awards, if applicable, in the winter semester after the students register for spring summer courses. Most students will receive the exact same financial aid package each semester as long as they submit that FAFSA application for the academic year. So for students enrolling in the upcoming fall semester, they can expect the same awards each semester, including the direct unsubsidized loan and work study. The university's Office of Financial Aid also processes the FAFSA, and they do budget increases, which I'll go over in a little bit more detail in a few slides. It is important to know which office to contact regarding any questions you might have on financial aid. The university's Office of Financial Aid may not know the specifics of the School of Social Work grants and scholarships, while the School of Social Work may not be able to answer questions specific to the processing of FAFSA. One last thing that I do want to point out is that graduate students are not eligible for Pell Grants or other scholarships with specifics to other departments on campus. So just to get into a little bit more about the federal funding, our graduate students are eligible for 3 sources of federal funding. Our students tend to be automatically eligible for that unsubsidized direct loan just by completing the FAFSA, as this loan is not based on need. Students are eligible for $20,500 per academic year. This breaks down to $10,250 per semester. Keep in mind that there is a loan fee associated with the loan. As I mentioned, students enrolled in the spring summer semester are also eligible for an unsubsidized loan, but again, this comes after you register for those spring summer courses. The interest rate is currently 8.08%, and that is fixed over the lifetime of the loan. The student is responsible for interest that accrues from the time the funds are dispersed onto the student's account. The interest rates may increase for loans in future academic years. The loan origination fee is currently 1.057%. Again, this will come out of the loan, which means only $10,142 will pay out onto the student's account if you accept the full loan. The federal government sets rates and fees each year, and they are subject to change. Again, the student is responsible for all of the interest that accrues on this loan the moment it is dispersed, unlike the subsidized loan that you might have had during undergrad, in which you were not responsible for the interest while enrolled. Students are also eligible for that direct Graduate Plus loan. However, there is a separate application that is required and can be submitted through studentaid.gov. Again, the same website you would go to fill out your FAFSA application. This loan does require students to complete a FAFSA application, and it is used for students who need additional funding to cover tuition and cost of living. The maximum a student can borrow is the cost of attendance determined by the university, minus any other financial aid received, such as scholarships, grants, loans, work study. I'll discuss this a little bit more in detail later on. Again, the students enrolled in the spring summer semester are eligible for a Graduate Plus loan. However, students will need to submit a new application for the spring summer semester, and that opens usually, or students are able to submit that in the winter semester. The interest rate is currently 9.08%, and again is fixed over the lifetime of the loan. The student is responsible for the interest that accrues from the time the funds are dispersed. The interest rate may increase for loans in future academic years. The current origination fee is 4.228%. And again, Grad Plus loan applications are required for this loan. One application for the fall and winter, and then a separate one for spring, summer. Just a quick note as well to discuss federal loans versus private loans. I always tell students to make sure they explore all of their options, do their research, and only borrow what you need. It's important as well to note that federal loans qualify for that federal loan forgiveness program, whereas private loans do not. And then finally, students might be eligible for work study. Now, work study is the only need-based federal financial aid that graduate students may be eligible for. Work study allows students to earn a paycheck, usually bi-weekly, for educational expenses and other costs such as rent, food, gas. This award is not applied to a student's account, but instead is earned by working throughout the semester. It is not a loan, and you must use it, otherwise you will lose it. The maximum award can range from $3,000 to $6,000 per academic year. Per semester, the normal award is $1,500 to $3,000. For students to receive their maximum allowance, as an example, a student could work $15 an hour for 200 hours a semester. Students usually work between 10 to 20 hours per week, and they might not reach their maximum award. I do want to mention that work study may be limited in the spring summer semester, just as other departments across campus usually don't have courses or students, so there's less work. Students can look and apply for jobs through the Student Employment Office. These jobs might be working in the library, the dining halls, the School of Social Work. Even our office has some positions available. There is options available for students to search for remote positions. I do want to emphasize for students in the part-time program, it is difficult to work full-time unless their job is flexible. And then for our full-time students, it's very difficult to work as well in a full-time program. So for these slides, I do just want to give a quick disclaimer. We do know that there's multiple students from multiple programs participating in our webinar today. So whether you're a full-time student or a part-time student on campus or online, some of these things may or may not relate to you. But a lot of the information is kind of the same across the board. So what we're looking at here in this example is the cost per semester for a full-time on-campus student who's enrolled in 9 or more credit hours. So for students in this scenario, they get charged the same amount for tuition, whether they enroll in 9 or up to 16 credits as an example. I do want to point out that tuition rates will increase for the 2025-2026 academic year. This includes the fall 2025, winter 2026, and spring summer 2026 semesters. These rates are usually determined prior to the academic year starting, which usually happens in July. In this example, we're looking at the costs per semester for a full-time online student who's enrolled in 9 or more credit hours, or again, charge that flat rate. Just to note that tuition is a little less for our online students, as there is a health fee that is not included for our online students, that is for our on-campus students. In this example, we're looking at the cost per semester for a part-time on-campus student who's enrolled in 8 or less credit hours. Part-time status is considered 8 or less credit hours. For part-time students, the university charges per credit hour as opposed to that flat tuition rate. Part-time students can register for different credits each semester, so we do not provide a specific breakdown, but students can visit the university's registrar's website for that breakdown. You can see the link is provided on our screen, ro.umich.edu. Part-time students are charged one rate for the first credit they enroll, and then a different rate for each additional credit hour. Just to note here, so this is the cost of attendance and student budget, which I'm going to touch upon. I do just want to point out that these kind of terms are used interchangeably. So in our case, when I'm going to be talking about them, the words are going to mean essentially the same thing. The university has to determine the estimated cost for an individual enrolled in a program, which is set by the university and not by the School of Social Work. These costs include tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and then personal and other costs. It is important to note that the figures below represent estimated expenses for one semester of a full-time on-campus enrollment. What that means is that the university estimates a cost of around $9,913 for room and board in the city of Ann Arbor, which means essentially it should not cost a student more than that to live each semester. Every student's room and board cost is different and the amounts will vary, but the university has to give an estimate of how much it will cost. The cost of attendance does vary for part-time and full-time students. So if you do have specific questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us, as each program does have different tuition rates. As I mentioned, budget increases can be done for students whose costs may exceed the total budget. Students can pursue a budget increase from the Office of Financial Aid. This may require specific documents or proof that your budget exceeds the cost of attendance set by the university, and both part-time and full-time students can apply for this. Next, we'll go over some examples of calculating your financial aid to cover your costs. So in our first example here, we're going to be looking at one semester for a non-resident student. In this scenario, we want to determine how much money the student could take out in a Graduate Plus loan. So we'll take the cost of attendance, which is $41,702, and subtract the financial aid, which includes grants, scholarships, work study, and the direct unsubsidized loan, which totals $14,250. This leaves the student with a remaining budget of $27,452, which means a student can take out approximately that much in a potential Grad Plus loan. Now, in this scenario, we are assuming that the student aid index is 0, and that number we get from students submitting their FAFSA application. Additionally, tuition and fees for the semester are $27,519. So $13,269 of that Graduate Plus funds will go towards the tuition and fee balance, and the remaining will be refunded to the student to cover living expenses. In our second example here, again, we're looking at one semester for a non-resident MSW student to see what their refund might be. We take the total financial aid costs, which include grants, scholarships, work study, and the direct unsubsidized loan, and subtract work study. We don't count work study as it is not actually applied to the student's bill. As students, again, must have to go out, find that work study job, and begin working to receive those funds. So that gives us a total of $28,142 to be applied directly to the student bill. It's important to remember to subtract loan fees when calculating your financial aid. So the non-resident tuition fees for one semester totals $27,519. So in this scenario, the student's financial aid is greater than the tuition cost, and therefore the student will receive a $623 refund. In this scenario, this demonstrates a student who has a balance after their financial aid has been applied to their account. So the student is a resident of Michigan in our MSW program. First, what we will do is add up their financial aid and then subtract their work study award to figure out the total aid they are receiving. So $11,142 will be applied directly to the student bill. Then we'll subtract the resident tuition and fees. So $17,275 for a Michigan resident leaves the student with a $6,133 tuition balance, which they'll still owe. Many students will let us know they have a balance and will inquire about how to cover these costs. So, students do have the option to pay out of pocket if they can, but many students do end up needing to borrow that Graduate Plus loan. Students can receive more than just their balance, but if you don't need additional funding to cover your costs, you can just cover tuition and fees. However, if more is needed, then it can be used for other expenses such as living, transportation, food.
That. So we'll talk about next steps now, as we kind of had a better understanding of your cost of attendance, how to calculate tuition and fees, how to better understand what refund, if any, you will receive. How do you actually go about getting all of these awards processed to your student account? All right, so one of the first things that I always try to touch upon is for students to verify their residency status. It's extremely, extremely important that you verify that prior to the semester beginning and actually prior to being charged any tuition and fees for the semester. I will give a quick note that in kind of processing financial aid this year, I have come across a number of students who are considered what we call res refer, meaning that in your application, you identified that you are a Michigan resident, but there was something in your application that identified the contrary. Whether it's you spent a significant amount of time outside of the state of Michigan, you may have had a study abroad period, maybe you attended college out of state. Those are some of the things that would be flagged as it relates to a student being classified as a non-resident. We identify this information in both your offer of admissions and also your School of Social Work financial aid notice. Students are required to complete an in-state tuition application. And again, I've provided the website here, but it's an application that you can submit to the residency office in order for them to verify your in-state residency status. This might include providing them with some additional documents, such as medical bills, utility bills, different things like that in order for you to demonstrate and prove that you are actually a Michigan resident. If you have not gone through this process, I do recommend that you do it as soon as possible. Their office can take anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks to process that application. So again, if you haven't done it as of right now, there could be a possibility that by the time student invoices and bills are issued, you will be charged as a non-resident. And I provided a note here on the screen. If your residency status is not determined by the time tuition and fees are due, it's recommended that you contact Student Financial Services, and we'll provide their contact information in a later slide, as they may be able to allow you to only be responsible for the in-state portion of tuition while a residency decision is being made. Just be mindful that any remaining non-resident tuition amount will be due if the final decision is for you to remain a non-resident. So please, please, please double check that information. I've come across a few students that I've connected with that have actually submitted the application, but they're still waiting on a decision. But again, if you are not sure of your residency status or, unsure if I could be referring to you, definitely go back and check the information that we sent you or your Wolverine Access account. Accepting and declining loans and work study awards and Wolverine Access. I think that there was a question that I was getting ready to answer before I jumped on. Unfortunately, you are not able to accept grants and scholarships in Wolverine Access. You can only accept or decline loans and work study within Wolverine Access. And so again, be mindful of the loan amount that you actually accept, especially as it relates to Graduate Plus loans. If you allow the university to determine the amount to award you, they're going to award you the max amount up to the total cost of attendance. So for example, you could be eligible for $18,000 a semester in Graduate Plus loans. But the reality is, do you really need that full amount to cover all of your expenses? Because remember that any loan amount that you take out, you are responsible for the interest that accrues on that loan. So again, if you don't need that funding, it's not recommended that you borrow that amount. And again, this is something that Marissa or I could assist you with if you need some help with budgeting and kind of figuring out, what's a good number to take out. I've already met with a few students thus far to help them figure out their expenses and what would be a good number to accept as far as those loans are concerned. Remember, in most cases, you are accepting loans and work study for 2 semesters. It'll be divided into equal amounts each semester. If you need to make any adjustments to the amount you accept or decline in a given semester, you're welcome to contact the university's Office of Financial Aid. And again, for many of you, I'm probably going to guess that if you were to go on Wolverine Access right now, you don't have the ability to accept or decline loans or work study. The kind of sample that I put here on the screen, you can see that the accept decline option is grayed out. And so that might be the case for many of you. And if that is the case, please do not worry. I think what happens is the university's Office of Financial Aid, they automatically have the system accept your loans and work study at some point. And so if you need to make any adjustments to that, again, make sure that you communicate with the university's Office of Financial Aid. They generally ask that this information be provided to them in writing. And so make sure when you send that email that you include not only your name, but also your student ID number, and be very specific as it relates to the amounts and even the semesters that you're inquiring about accepting or declining. Again, as I mentioned, you are not able to accept or decline grants and scholarships in Wolverine Access. When we emailed your grant and scholarship awards from the School of Social Work, there was also another attachment in that email to accept or decline your awards. You're required to email or complete and sign that form and email it back to our office. That is the only way that grants and scholarships will actually be posted and show up on your student account. You also should make sure to complete any applicable master promissory notes or entrance counseling for any direct loans. And this is applicable to unsubsidized and or Graduate Plus loans. You would complete either of these documents in studentaid.gov. So you would need to sign into your account. If you're not sure if you need to complete this, generally Wolverine Access does provide this information. And so if you go to your student center and then under financial aid, making sure that you're under aid year 2025, and then looking at documents/review. I've checked a few students thus far, and I do see at the very least entrance counseling is typically needed for many of you. We do encourage you to set up direct deposit via Wolverine Access for easy access to any applicable refunds and or work study funding that you may receive. If you do not have direct deposit set up or choose not to have direct deposit set up, a check will be mailed to your current address listed in Wolverine Access. And you can sign up for direct deposit simply by going to your Wolverine Access account. And there should be a payroll tile. And then I think off to the left-hand side, there's an option to fill in your direct deposit information. So understanding your student bill, many students should receive an invoice emailed to them within their Wolverine Access account on or around August the 9th. The student invoice will usually include tuition and fees for the given semester, university on-campus housing charges, as students that are residing on campus are responsible for monthly rent. And then there may be a separate section in your account titled Pending Aid. This pending aid may include any direct unsubsidized loans, as well as any grants or scholarships that you've received from the School of Social Work. You may not see School of Social Work aid in this section, and this is really depending upon when we're able to add your awards to the system. But please do not worry, even if you do not see your awards listed as under pending aid, your awards will still be applied to your student account by the time tuition and fees are due, as long as you have actually accepted your awards by returning that form back to our office. And again, unfortunately, Graduate Plus loans do not show up as pending aid. Graduate Plus loans will just post to your account when the university's Office of Financial Aid processes it. Aid will automatically be applied to your student bill. So this is inclusive of any scholarships, grants, unsubsidized loan, as well as potentially any Graduate Plus loan that you may have, starting on August the 17th. Another thing that I strongly encourage students to do, verify that all of your awards, again, scholarships, grants, and loans, are all posted to your account as you know them to have been awarded to you, and that the amounts are enough to actually enough to cover all of the costs identified within your student bill. If you don't have enough financial aid to cover your costs, generally speaking, that probably means you either need to explore a Graduate Plus loan, you potentially might have to explore paying out of pocket, or I'll talk about in a moment some additional resources that might be available to you in terms of helping to cover costs. Any excess amount of financial aid will be refunded to the student, so much like the example that Marissa provided a little early on. So if you are due a refund, you will either receive it as direct deposit or a check will be mailed to your residence. And refunds will begin being issued on or after August the 20th. And I think that for students that have direct deposit set up, the date that we've been provided is August the 23rd for students to receive direct deposits. And then checks will be received, I think, later on in that week. So a lot of it just depends upon how the mail runs in your area. A tip that I usually provide for students that are residing in on-campus housing, it might be wise of you, and I guess this can be said even for students that are residing in off-campus housing as well. It might be wise for you to take your refund and pay your housing bill for the entire semester. So if you have the ability to do that, that might be my recommendation, especially if you're not sure, how you're going to manage the money. I know for a lot of students, this is the first time that you have had experience with sometimes maybe a large sum of money. And, just to prevent yourself from spending the money when in all actuality, you need it for living expenses, I do encourage students to make kind of one lump sum payment to cover their housing costs. The student bill for fall 2024 is due on August the 31st. So tuition fees that you are charged for fall of 2024 will be due on August the 31st. So again, if your intention is to have grants and scholarships and loans cover all of your tuition and fees, there won't be anything that you'll need to do to make sure that that tuition bill is paid because everything will be automatically applied to your account. If you intend on making any payments out of pocket, these payments should be made to the university by this date. And again, for some students, if there may be some students that are not able to engage in this webinar who may not know anything about Graduate Plus loans or, just waiting a little bit longer to hear back maybe about some external scholarships, for instance. And so keeping in mind that if you're not applying per se to a Graduate Plus loan until later this month, you may not see all of your aid posted to your account by the time that the tuition and fee bill is actually due. And I just want to share with students that having a balance on or after August the 31st will not impact your ability to attend classes or to attend field. But what it will impact is your ability to register for future semesters and in the end, ultimately receive any transcripts from the university. So I'm not suggesting that you just don't pay your balance, but you typically do have a short grace period to make any payment. So if it's a day late, I do believe that students have a short grace period, and you're welcome to contact Student Financial Services because again, I just actually found out this year that the grace period can be different for different students depending upon on when their student bill or their invoice was actually issued. So I don't want to give hard and fast grace periods, if you will. But if you're inquiring about that, definitely reach out to Student Financial Services. I also recommend verifying that all of your aid has been or will be posted to your account prior to making any direct payments to the university. A couple of important notes that we kind of have realized over the last few semesters, particularly as it relates to the creation of our part-time programs. One being, if you make registration adjustments after you have been issued a refund from the university, verify that you do not now owe money to the university due to a change in the tuition charges. For some students, at the time that the bill is issued, they may have only been registered for 5 credits. But maybe on September 1st, they realized that they wanted to add an additional class, or somebody told them, that they needed to add an additional class. And if you do that, there could be a change in your tuition charges. And be mindful, this is more specific to part-time students because, again, with full-time students, you're charged a flat rate. So regardless if you are taking 9 credits or 18 credits, full-time students are charged the exact same. So if you make any tuition adjustments kind of within that window above 9 credits, there won't be any adjustments to be made. But if you are a part-time student specifically, and you need to drop courses or add courses kind of later into the semester or after the semester has already began, definitely verify your student account that you do not owe money to the university. For part-time students, particularly, in order to prevent the overpayment of Graduate Plus loans enrolled less than full time, the university's Office of Financial Aid will not disperse plus loan funding until after the drop add deadline, which occurs this fall on September the 16th. And so typically the university gives a 3-week period where students can drop and add courses without any tuition implications, outside of, again, if you are a part-time student, you're going to be charged per credit hour. But again, particularly for part-time students, the university will automatically package you as a full-time student, which means that your total student budget may actually be more than what it actually is, which means, again, if you are provided Graduate Plus loan funds, you could receive an overpayment of Grad Plus loan funds. And I know that may seem a little weird to understand. And unfortunately, this is out of the control of the School of Social Work in terms of why they package all part-time students as full-time initially. But again, just be mindful of this, because in previous semesters, we had a number of students that would come to us, say, a month into the semester, saying that they're now being told that they owe thousands of dollars to the university because they were overpaid Graduate Plus loan funds. And while our response would be, we'll take the refund that you received and just pay the money back to the university. Many of those students at that time, said, well, I don't have that money anymore. And so what do I do? And so our office has had to work with students to try to figure out, additional loan situations or other avenues to explore to help them cover those additional costs that were now added to their account. Marissa touched upon it a little bit, but I want to talk briefly about working while in the program. Many students in the full-time program hold part-time jobs. So whether you're in the online or the on-campus program, we generally find that working anywhere between 10 to 20 hours per week is the average and what tends to be feasible for most students. And so whether you're working a part-time job via work study or you have some external position that you're working while you're in the program, 10 to 20 hours is usually feasible. We do not generally recommend that students work full-time and also engage in the full-time MSW program. There generally ends up being field placement and course conflicts, particularly field placement from the standpoint that most field placements will require you to have availability during the day, during the week. And so that generally conflicts with most individuals' work schedule. And so, unless your job is entirely flexible and will allow you the opportunity to engage in courses and field placement during the day, we usually find that students end up having to drop their hours if they're working full time or completely leave their job for the duration of the program. Again, Marissa touched upon work study. Most jobs are on campus. However, there may be some off campus options available. So, for instance, um, there are a variety of positions offered across the university, whether it be in the School of Social Work, in one of the residence halls, at the university library, for example. But there might also be some off campus opportunity. I know one of the common ones, I don't know if any of our students have held any of these positions, but that I'm aware of is America Reads. So it's almost like a tutoring program in the local Ann Arbor area. So it is sponsored by the University of Michigan, but your job will actually be in one of the schools that are close to campus. Again, you can find available work study positions at studentemployment.umich.edu. You can also find potential part-time employment across the university that are maybe not work study related. So there are a variety of part-time positions offered across the university. Again, work study is available for full-time and part-time students. You must be registered for at least 4 credits in a given semester in order to be eligible for work study. And I've had a few online students inquire, but work study could be an option for online students, as I have seen some remote work study positions available. Keeping in mind that this is not guaranteed. And again, if you're interested in applying for a particular position, you are welcome to reach out to the individual program or department to inquire if there might be remote opportunities available. Some additional resources and information to share regarding the child care subsidy, first and foremost. This is support for financial support for students with dependent children in child care within the state of Michigan. Um, there's not necessarily a specific amount that I can share with you, but the application is available on the financial aid website through the university, keeping in mind that this will only be for students that have dependent children in care within the state of Michigan. So if you're an online student residing outside of the state of Michigan, unfortunately, the child care subsidy would not be available to you at this time. The university does offer student health insurance. The deadline to enroll for the 2024-2025 academic year is September the 30th of this year. You are able to use any financial aid support to cover student health insurance. And so, if you were interested in accessing a Graduate Plus loan to help you cover the costs of medical insurance, you certainly are welcome to do that. Health insurance is separate from student accounts. And so, you have to go into a completely separate system and you're making payments directly to the insurance provider as opposed to the university. Health insurance is definitely something that I encourage everyone to look into. I can't tell you the number of students that I encounter throughout an academic year that are approaching us, say for emergency funding, because of having some uncovered medical expense, perhaps because they don't have medical insurance. The university also offers tuition insurance. So this is available for students that may be unable to complete a term due to illness or injury, whether it be physical or mental health related. Generally, we find that this might be helpful for students. Maybe you present with some type of chronic condition where you're unsure at any given time what medical issue might arise. And so potentially needing to withdraw from a semester, and perhaps take some time off within the program. There's a certain period within the semester in which, even if you withdraw, you are still on the hook and responsible for tuition and fees and potentially any loans that you have access. But again, tuition insurance helps you to cover those costs and not have to worry about the financial aspect of needing to withdraw because of any illness or injury. The university also offers a payment plan, keeping in mind that the payment plan should only be used if you are planning to pay any portion of your tuition out of pocket. So let's just say you identify that your balance for the semester is going to be $5,000. Maybe you don't have $5,000 come August the 31st to make one lump sum payment. The university does allow for you to enroll in a payment plan in which that, for instance, that $5,000 payment is spread out across 5 installments. Be mindful that the payment plan is only an option for fall and winter semester. It is not available for spring, summer semester. I want to repeat this again. It's not available for the spring summer semester. Every year, we end up getting calls and emails from students reporting that they did not know that the payment plan was not an option for spring summer semester. Our office tries our best to share this information with you and all of the financial aid resources that we've provided thus far. Particularly when you were awarded grants and scholarships, there was a financial aid guide that identified this information as well. So please remember that payment plans are only an option for fall and winter. The other important thing to recognize with the payment plan is that it does not run concurrently with the semester. So the fall semester runs from September through December. The fall payment plan cycle actually runs from June to October. And then the winter payment plan cycle runs from November through March. So if you were to sign up for the payment plan today, your student account will likely show that you owe a bill for June and July at this point, and then you would owe another payment come August and then September. The deadline to enroll for fall of 2024 in the payment plan is September the 1st. Additional scholarship and funding opportunities, as Marissa spoke about a little earlier, we do offer some development fund awards, or what we sometimes refer to as named scholarships. Many of you may have seen on the School of Social Work website under our grant and scholarship page a huge listing of grants and scholarships. But also notice that the scholarships are separated into 3 sections. There is one section titled does not require a separate application. Those are all of the grants and scholarships that all students are evaluated for at the time of admission. And so if you did not receive one of those scholarships in your initial School of Social Work Financial Aid Award notice, unfortunately, you were not selected for any of those. There is another tab that says requires a separate application. These are all of the scholarships that we typically make, or most of them, I should say. Some of them pertain to special programs. But many of these are going to be scholarships that we make available in the fall semester. And just as a heads up, we are hoping to be able to make these applications available within the next week. The website will be updated with a link to each individual scholarship application. We will also send an email to all students once these applications become available. Our plan right now, if we can stick with our timeline, is to release them within the next week. And the deadline for applying for them will be at the end of August. I think we set it as August the 30th. Please be mindful that there are only a handful of these development fund awards. And so while you are welcome to apply to as many as you are eligible for, there are only a select number available. So not every student that applies will be able to be awarded. These development fund scholarships are usually available as one-time only awards, meaning that when the decision is made, probably sometime in September, about who is selected, That award will be posted to your account at that time. And you won't receive it again throughout your time in the program, unless, for instance, you decided if you're around, say next fall, you can reapply for all of these same scholarships if you are eligible. Remember that I also said that the scholarship will be posted sometime during this fall semester. So by the time that any of those scholarships are posted to your account, many of you have probably covered your tuition and fees at that point. So for a lot of students, what it just means is that any development fund award that you receive would just be refunded to you. You do also have the option to request of our office to apply that scholarship perhaps to the winter semester, perhaps so you don't have to take out as much in loans. Or if you'd like to, you can hang on to the money once it's refunded to you, and then make a direct payment to the university for any future semester. We also have on that same web page a listing of external scholarships. So these are all of the scholarships that we have just done our research on, that our MSW students might be eligible for, but they do not have anything to do with the School of Social Work or the university. So these are all external, meaning that if you have any questions, concerns, want to know deadlines, want specific information about application information, we encourage you to reach out to those organizations directly. The university does also offer graduate student instructor, or GSI, and graduate student research assistant, or GSRA, and graduate student staff assistant positions across campus, or GSSA. So as a GSI, you're assisting in the planning and teaching of undergraduate courses. As a GSRA, you're assisting faculty on research projects. As a GSSA, you are assisting with administrative tasks within a department. Now, I will say that we do not offer any of these positions within the School of Social Work, but many of our students are able to apply for these positions in other departments across campus. I've provided the website to where you can find these available positions. And just to provide a couple of notes with them, um, they can be offered at various times throughout a semester. So if you were to go to that website today, you might not see anything that's of interest to you or even that you are eligible to apply for. Sorry about that if you see. And so generally speaking, you are able to search that site just periodically throughout your time in the program. So again, you might not see anything now, but there might be something added in September. There might be something added in November, and thinking about future semesters, because these positions are typically held on a semester by semester basis. So if you are interested in one of these opportunities, I strongly encourage you to check that site regularly. I will tell you that sometimes having one of these positions could interfere with your MSW program. Most of these positions will generally require up to 20 hours of work throughout the week. And I know, for instance, when the School of Social Work did have these positions available, particularly GSSAs, because of the requirement that we had for the work hour attached to them, many students had to stay around an additional semester. So, in a semester that you had a GSSA, instead of taking 15 credits, you might have only been able to do 10 credits in that particular semester. It traditionally ends up working out for most students if that is the case, because the benefits of each of these positions usually come with a tuition waiver, health insurance, and a monthly stipend. The tuition waiver may vary depending upon the position. We've seen some of these positions that offer a full tuition waiver, some positions that may only offer a 50%, tuition waiver. But it ends up working out for most students because most of the students that we've seen have been able to have these positions for multiple semesters. So even if that means that you have to hang around for 5 semesters instead of 4 semesters, if your GSSA position can cover 3 out of those 5 semesters, you definitely are better off than you started with having to pay 4 semesters of full-time tuition and 4 semesters of being a student loan borrower. We also find that the monthly stipend that is offered with these positions can be enough to cover your monthly expenses. So when you think about your housing costs and room and board, the monthly stipend can usually be enough depending upon what your expenses actually are. And so that concludes our webinar. I know we are actually 30 minutes early. I tried to give us enough time just because we recognize sometimes there might be, a few more questions that we offer, and just kind of getting through technically sometimes can be a challenge. So I definitely appreciate and thank you all for joining us. I've provided my contact information as well as Marissa's here on the screen. Also contact information for the School of Social Work Financial Aid Office, if you will. We're a part of the Office of Student Services and Enrollment Management, so it's the exact same phone number. There is a different email address. Marissa and I are able to help students with financial aid counseling, budgeting and money management, student loan repayment options, as well as student loan forgiveness options. We actually just started last semester. Every semester towards the end, we actually conduct a student loan forgiveness and repayment webinar. Just as you're thinking about graduating from the program, what does it look like to start thinking about repaying on any student loans that you might have had? What are my repayment plan options? How do I go about consolidating loans? What are some of my options as it relates to loan forgiveness, particularly as a social worker? We certainly are happy to answer any questions, but again, you're welcome to engage in those webinars when the time comes. And then also providing contact information for the university's Office of Financial Aid, but then also Student Financial Services. Just remember that they are 2 different offices. Student Financial Services handles student accounts, billing, and payment. So again, we definitely appreciate you all joining us this evening or afternoon, maybe morning for some of you. We will stay on for a little bit longer just to potentially answer any questions that you all may have, but we definitely welcome you all to get in touch with us individually to answer any specific questions that you might have. And again, I hope that this information was helpful for you, at least having a better understanding of the financial aid process. And again, hopefully you're leaving with a better understanding than you started off with tonight for this webinar. So again, welcome to the University of Michigan, and I look forward to hopefully meeting many of you in person in just a few weeks here with orientation.